listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again today. We have another show lined up for y'all. We have our special guest for today is Tim Brown. He's the founder of REUP Men's Movement. You can go to the website, reupmen.com. We're going to learn everything about his amazing organization, how he got started, and what inspired him to make this move. So first and foremost, I want to welcome Tim this morning and say, how you doing, sir?
Doing great, brother. Thanks for having me on. It's an honor.
Yes, sir. I appreciate your time. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you became the founder of REUP Men's Movement.
Well, I'm now 58 years old, and I'm a guy that, I'm that guy that did everything you're not supposed to, and probably did it twice, and crashed and burned and hit brick wall after brick wall, and was failing as a husband and really as a father and just the whole deal. And I after everything else I tried was futility, I grabbed hold of the Lord and thought I'd give it a shot. And he went about proving that he is who he says he is, and wound up using the most unlikely person in the world for his purposes. And so about 15 years ago, just really felt him pressing upon me in the midst of my vocation, what I was doing at that time. For almost 30 years, I was in the men's custom clothing business, and I dealt with men one-on-one in their office or homes and sold them custom-made clothing, suits, sport coats, things like that, back when guys used to dress up a lot in the workplace. And in the midst of that, the Lord just kind of started to show me that men were struggling. They had things that they were struggling with in regards to really, first and foremost, their identity. Most men believed that what they did, the things that they were accumulating, and the people they knew really was who they were. That was their identity. And unfortunately, some men believed that some of the failures they'd had in the past, or even some of the successes, defined who they were as well. So I really started to see that men believed that what they did, who they knew, and what they had was who they were. And for that reason, a lot of men were unfulfilled. A lot of these men were not really leading their homes, or their marriages weren't thriving. They didn't have a lot of friends. Just a lot of things going on in the midst of that. A lot of men that were really searching for answers, even though they, on the surface, from a worldly perspective, they had it going on, and other young men wanted to be them. But what they didn't know behind closed doors was that these men were really struggling. And so in the midst of that, as the Lord started to kind of show me that, he kind of laid an assignment out there for me, and me and some other guys kind of started to go about addressing that. And so we looked at where we felt like some of the problems were. And number one, we were finding that Christian men didn't really have anything that could really help them from the local church, kind of answer their questions, help them learn their identity, help them develop friendships, help them develop accountability in their life. And really, there wasn't really anything out there that they could tangibly grab hold of that would really take them where they wanted to be as men. So we started kind of working on that, and really didn't know what we were doing, but we just started creating a context and resources for that to happen. And it started to flourish. The Lord started doing some really cool things and changing a lot of men's lives. And so we fast forward to where we're at today, and we've seen thousands of men across the country that the Lord has brought about life change and done some really neat things using the structures and the context and the resources and the support that REUP has kind of created in coming alongside the local church and helping them build a men's discipleship system for their men and have a plan and something effective that their men will react to. And then also just in helping individual men answer some of these questions of what is a biblical man, really understanding and grasping their true identity, and so they can turn around and pass that on to the next generations. So it's been a real neat journey, and we just kind of, we're excited about being able to continue to do that as much as possible.
Once again, listen on Refocus Radio, talking to our guest, Tim Brown, the founder of REUP Men. You go to reupmen.com, and you touch on how your organization are helping to build men to be leaders and be effective and to live a productive lifestyle. What's some of the frequent common feedback you receive from the men you help, and how your organization is helping them sharpen their skills and to live a bold life, if you will?
Well, one of the things that we found early on that needed to really be addressed was a lot of men most men actually have bought the lie that one man can't really make a difference in our world today. And that is such a huge lie that we've got to get men back to believing that one man can make a difference. In my book that I wrote called God and a Man, how God can use any man to make a difference. That was one of the reasons I felt like the Lord gave me that assignment to write that, was to tell my story. And so men could see that one man can really make a difference, and it doesn't matter what you've done, the mistakes you've made, the valleys and lows and dark places you've gone in your life. It doesn't really matter if you will be a man that decides to pursue God's heart. He will use you, and because he created all men to be that. So really two things that I think we really get from men a lot is, number one, man, I'm not sure I can really make a difference. And so we really try to attack that and help them understand that that's a lie from the enemy. And then going about really helping them or answering the question, then, okay, if I can make a difference, then where do I start? And so I think those are two common things that we hear from guys most of the time, is that, man, Tim, I've been divorced a couple times, or, I had some kids that, just went astray, and I really didn't do a good job as a father, or whatever, so I'm just existing. I don't think I'm a guy that can really make a difference. Well, again, that's a lie that the enemy has really gotten men to buy into. So once we can help men realize that, and to make them realize they are God's man, every man is God's man, and that's a message we really try to pound into guys, is you're God's man, you're God's man, you're God's man, no matter what the enemy gets in your head and makes you think. And then once we can kind of help them start to believe that they can make a difference and that they are God's man, then the natural thing is now we need to help you learn your identity, so you can truly step into who you are which is God's man, and then you can go about making a difference. So I would say those are probably the 2 or 3 key things there.
And can you share some examples of some of the leaders that you helped develop who have had significant impact on their lives and their own community, and how they use that to be a light in their own space?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that, I'll tell you a personal story here that there was a gentleman. This goes back when we first started REUP about 14 years ago, and he was in one of the original groups of men that we started. Our core structure that we use is based around a weekly structure that we created for men to come together, 6 to 7 men on a weekly basis. And we call it a fire team. And a fire team is a military term for men in a foxhole fighting a battle together against an enemy. And they're taking fire, they're taking heat from the enemy. So that's kind of the context that we create for these men to step into. And then they use our structure and our resources and so forth that we've created inside of that. But this particular gentleman had been a former policeman for many, many years. He had recently retired, but he was a part of this group, and they were going through our very first resource that we created that is still our signature resource, which is called "Don't You Know Who You Are?" It's a biblical-based study that we created for guys to use inside of these groups to really help them learn their identity. And I had gone and sat in with them their first few weeks in the study, and he sat down at the end of the table and was very quiet, didn't say really anything. And as we were concluding, he finally spoke up and just said, guys, I'm not sure I can continue on. You guys seem to really be getting a lot out of this, and you're sharing that, and that's just not happening for me. So the good thing was the other men rallied around him and convinced him not to quit, and so he stayed the course. And so I went back several weeks later, maybe 8 or 9 weeks later, and they were just finishing this course. And same thing, he was kind of quiet, but at the end of it, he spoke up and just said, "Hey, Tim, I need to say something, because the last time you were here, I was going to basically walk away from this. But I want you to know that because I stayed, I have finally learned for the first time in my life. I accepted Jesus when I was 17, and now I'm 52. But for the first time in this 35 years, I understand my identity and that I am truly, truly a child of God, and what that really means." And he started to cry, and he said, "Man, if I just would have known that so much early on in my life, what kind of difference that would have made in regards to me leading my home, and how it would have helped my marriage flourish, and how I could have been such an influencer in my church and my community." And since that time, that man has done that. He's become just a huge influencer of a lot of young men. He's invested in them to help them learn a lot of the same things that he had learned, which has become more of a duplication, multiplication, making disciple kind of thought process. But we've got stories after stories where guys, when that light bulb finally goes off and they learn that they are who God says they are, no matter what they've done in their life, they just naturally step into different spaces and context and lead, because men were created to lead. I mean, we're leaders. It's in us instinctively. We're problem solvers. We're fixers. We're leaders. But most men are not leading because they don't know their identity, and so they believe that what they've done or what they do is who they are. And if they've had some failures, they kind of step into the corner, put their head down, look at their shoes, and just stay there and say, "You guys can play on without me." But what we're finding is when the guy learns what we're talking about and the Lord reveals that to him, he quits looking down at his shoes. He steps up, looks forward, steps back into the game, and leads and sets an example and sets the course and trail, kind of blazes the trail for the next generations of men.
When it comes to navigating through life in this world that we live in, when men are pursuing God's own heart, how do you approach encouraging men to stay focused on that and not to get distracted by life?
Yeah, it's a great question, because the enemy really excels at using life to distract us. So, one of the things we've done is inside these groups of men, these fire teams of men, once we get the guys in there, and they do the studies, the resources that we've created, they're building friendship, they're building accountability in their life. And one of the interesting things is that we're seeing that one of the reasons men really like this and want this is because they're developing friendships. Most men don't have friends. The George Barna research, most recent statistic shows that only 5% of Christian men say they have a best friend. Men just don't have friends. The enemy's really gotten us isolated. So one of the ways we keep guys going and keep them focused is they develop friendships inside of this. And because of those friendships, they stay. They keep showing up. They stay the course. And those friends keep them encouraged, and they encourage each other. But the other thing we've learned is that men are pretty much quitters, and the reason men quit is because they get distracted. As you mentioned earlier, life distracts them. The enemy uses even good things in their lives to distract them. But what we've done is we've tried to create a support system. Once these guys step into these teams and or even individually, if they start using some of our resources, and like they use the "Don't You Know Who You Are" course, we've created a support system to keep reminding men why they're doing what they're doing. And we've learned, as long as you keep doing that and you keep getting men to focus on the end in mind, the old Stephen Covey business principle, and the end in mind is being who God made you to be, being a great father, being a great husband, being a great influencer. And we found if we can just keep reminding men of that and keep them focused on that moving forward, they'll stay. Because right now, our average tenure of our teams, our groups of men, is almost 9 years. These guys stay together. They don't quit. They don't walk away because they're getting something significant out of it. It's changing their life, and it's changing how they lead and how they live their life. And so these guys stay because they're getting something out of it. I mean, men are quitters. So for a guy to keep showing up once a week at 6 a.m. or whatever time they meet with these 5 or 6 other guys for 9 years, guys don't do that unless they're getting something out of it and that they're heading where they want to go. So that's some of the ways we do that. We feel like the friendship aspect of it inside these groups kind of helps that occur naturally. But then we do some other things around it to keep them focused on the end in mind and give them some support and encouragement. And, men get very little encouragement out there in our world. And so as long as you just give them a little bit, they'll pretty much stay the course and head to where they really want to go.
Someone listening to this right now, men who are listening to this and they feel like they need to be a part of something like this, some kind of brotherhood, accountability system, how can they join REUP, man, and get involved?
Well, before I do that, I'll just say kind of what you were saying. We're finding all men want to be a part of a cause bigger than themselves. And once they can find something like that and step into it, they realize how significant that is and how it's ingrained in us that we all want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. And so in order to do that with REUP, we have different ways you can do it. Obviously, we have a website, reupmen.com, that gives you lots of information about us, and it'll also link you to the next thing I'm going to mention, and that's a new technology platform that we had developed for us. Took about 2 years to develop it. We released it soon be a year ago. It was in October of last year we released it, and it's not www dot. It's the I always pronounce this wrong, but it's the HTTP / or whatever reup.impact.app. And that is basically our entire way of functioning now with the men. Men can access it any place in the world. We're getting ready to release over in Australia later towards the end of the year. And so men can access it anywhere at any time. And it's basically how to start a team. If somebody wants to start a team of guys, if you just want something individually. So all the studies, all the resources, all the support systems, everything that we do is inside this platform. So those are a couple ways. You can reach out to me personally, tim@reupmen.com, and I'd be happy to connect you in or help you in any way. We have virtual, not all of our teams that we have are in person. We have a virtual fire team structure as well. That's really started to take off for us. Like I'm in one of those myself as well. I'm in an in-person one, but I do one virtually too with 5 guys in 4 different states, which is really kind of a cool deal too. So we have various ways that we can connect you. All we want you to do is take that first step. Don't let the enemy convince you, you got too much going on, or you'll get to that later or whatever. Just if you feel like the Lord's pressing something on you like that, react, do something. And he'll always honor that.
And with having a relationship with God, with you personally, how did you sustain that relationship and not get too deep into the weeds of life happening and, setbacks?
I would say when I really started to understand that what I do is not who I am, but who I am has a huge impact on what I do if I really know who I am. When that truth started from a scriptural basis started to come alive for me, it was so much easier to stay focused because, again, if I believe that the things I do, it changes who I am in God's eyes, then all I'm doing all the time is stuff, and it's easy to get distracted. But when I really understand who I am and that changes what I do, then it's a lot easier to stay focused on what I need to focus on and not get distracted and get off course. So I think it starts there. And then just constantly reminding myself in the message in my mind that, okay, I am God's man. I am God's man. No matter what the enemy's throwing at me right now, trying to distract me, no matter as the tornadoes of life are circling around me. In the center of that circle, as all the storms and tornadoes of life are circling around me, is I have to maintain that focus of, okay, he is who he says he is. I'm his man. And now I just have to stay focused on that. And again, when I keep going back to this identity piece, when I really start to learn who I am, it just changes what I do, and I don't get distracted. I don't let the other things in life worry me and get me off course too much and pull me out of the game. I'm focused on the deal when I really understand that identity deal. So again, I could get into a lot of other things, but that right off the bat, I think that's kind of how I would answer that.
Listen on Refocus Radio, talking to our guest, Tim Brown, the founder of REUP Men's Movement. You can go to his website, reupmen.com. And again, can you give that site for those who are interested in checking out that app you mentioned earlier?
Yeah. It's, again, not the www dot, it's the URL, the HTTP /REUP REUP.impact.app.
Once again, I want to say thanks for your time, Tim, for taking time talking to us today. Anything you would like to share with our audience for a call to action?
Well, first off, thanks for the privilege and the honor to be on, man. I'm very humbled. I appreciate what you're doing. And if there's any way I can help, obviously, I'd love to do that. My last words would be, the call to action would be to just, again, that message of no matter what's going on around you, you are God's man, and grab hold of that, and then go find out. Be bold. Be a man. Be aggressive. Be intentional. Go about trying to learn what that means. Being God's man. What is that? And it's not going to fall out of the sky. You got to go get it, and He'll give it to you. But it starts with really believing that that's who you are, even though you don't understand that yet. But believe that. That's a promise. That's a trust. That's a truth. You are God's man. Now, go do something about how to learn how to live in that and understand what that means. And we'll be glad to help you in any way we can, because this is a big deal. We are so desperate for male leadership today, and you can be that guy. You can be that guy who impacts hundreds and thousands of people. You can. One man can make that big a difference.
We've been talking to Tim Brown, the founder of REUP Men's Movement. You go to his website, once again, reupmen.com. And once again, I want to say thank you for your time.
Awesome. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.